Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. This is a show where we talk about what people believe and why, and we are on the third night of Theist Month, where I am featuring exclusively theist guests as my regular guests, which I have every single week as well. And this week is Megan Lewis of the YouTube channel Digital Hammurabi. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. It's nice to be here.
Yes, I am excited that you get to be my guest tonight. Megan, we've known each other for a little over a year now, I think. So this is fun because, this is something that I've thought about doing an episode on before, actually, because I'll let you introduce yourself in a second, but like you do a lot of cool stuff on your channel. And you are married to an atheist, but you identify as a Christian, and so that's something that you get asked about a lot. I'm glad that we can talk about that a bit tonight. But talk about Digital Hammurabi for a second. What is it that you do on the channel?
Sure. So Digital Hammurabi is kind of like a public outreach academic type YouTube channel. We do a lot of work on the ancient Near East, which is the history of Iraq and Iran. But also the Southern Levant, and we try and get Egyptologist guests on as well to kind of broaden our horizons a little bit. Both Josh and I are Assyriologists, which means we went to grad school for far too long. I don't really recommend that to many people. And he obviously graduated with his PhD. I got 7 years in and decided that I was going to have a nervous breakdown if I tried to finish. So I have 2 master's degrees in Assyriology, which still really is more than any one person needs. But that means I do a lot of like Mesopotamian history, mythology, literature. And when I have the time, I do read Akkadian and Sumerian, but it's been a while since I did that.
That's good, because I sometimes can't spell things right in English on Twitter. So you're already doing better in the language department than I am.
The great thing about Akkadian especially is that there are so many ways of spelling things.
Oh, that's good.
It's pretty much phonetic, so you just sound stuff out. And
here's the thing.
Sometimes they don't write letters where they should be, and that's okay.
As you can tell, for viewers who are watching this live, I got the green screen behind us again, and we pulled up some ancient cuneiform. And I'll be honest, I'm not even 100% sure what language is going on behind me, and it could be something that could be demonetizable by YouTube standards, but only Megan would know. So I think we're good, right?
I think you're probably fine. I mean, okay. to be brutally honest, looking at it, I can't tell off the top of my head what language it is either.
Oh, okay.
I suspect it's Akkadian, but it might not be. It could be like Old Persian or something.
There is one Akkadian person out there who, or I guess it wouldn't be. That would just be the nationality then, right? It wouldn't even be. There's somebody out there that's mad. That was the point. That was the joke I was going to make.
Someone somewhere is mad.
But now it doesn't even make any sense. So anyway, we're just going to move on. So Megan, you have been doing this project with Dr. Josh, who was on about a month ago. For those of you who want to check that out, don't click to it right now. Obviously, you're listening to this episode. But it was really interesting to get his take because, the work that he's done has influenced his personal beliefs a lot about religion in general, but also like his ideas of God, his ideas of Christianity, and how he kind of related to the world. And so like, I was kind of curious, the work that you do with Digital Hammurabi, and also just obviously your background in academia and everything else, like how has that influenced your own religious beliefs?
In all honesty, not a massive amount. And I think a lot of that is because I wasn't raised with biblical inerrancy. I was actually quite surprised when I came to the States and discovered that there's a large number of people who genuinely think that the earth flooded and that like Adam and Eve were real people in an actual garden, because that was always explained to me growing up as like myth, allegory, stories that people try and use to explain where they came from, like not actually something that really happened. So learning that there's this kind of literary tradition, an ancient Near Eastern literary tradition that includes like flood narratives, and that the word Eden is actually just kind of an Akkadian word for like step. like it doesn't faze me because I didn't have that foundation of everything in the Bible is literally true.
Interesting. Yeah. Like I kind of grew up half and half. Like some of it was definitely true, but also some of it could be metaphor. It just kind of depended on who you talk to. You know, it was definitely a little more of a mixed crowd, but it does surprise me too when I meet other people whose entire backgrounds was, yes, this was the absolute truth. The earth is 6,000 years old. And here's the exact things that happened on the first couple of days, you know, that is something that I couldn't relate to as much because I grew up in a household that was fine with evolution and was fine with like a bunch of other stuff that maybe other Christians wouldn't. So it does kind of surprise me too sometimes, like even though I've been talking about this for so long that like, yeah, that is the mindset that people have with this stuff. So, you know, with that perspective in mind, that, you know, it's a bit more of a sort of looser look at the Bible, right? A more academic perspective than maybe what the average church, you know, might talk about with the Bible. I mean, like, how does that influence your personal faith at all? Because there are some people, and I'll just to clarify, just because like people I've talked to on this show who say that, yes, it's because of my academic look that they say that they're not Christians anymore because of what they've studied and because that they don't, the faith doesn't really mean anything to them. So it's interesting to hear from you because you're the only person well, you're not the only person I know, but the person I regularly talk to that doesn't view it that way. So I'm just curious how you feel about that.
It's kind of it's weird, and I think there is definitely a disconnect, and I think I'd probably have to examine it more deeply if I did any kind of New Testament studies. Like I'm pretty sure that Jesus is an historical figure, but I genuinely don't know where I land on the resurrection, which to many people's minds just means, well, you're not a Christian. You can't possibly be.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. You may think of me what you want. That's absolutely fine.
Sure.
I've been told I'm not a Christian many times. And it doesn't really matter. I think that the religion I was raised with emphasizes far more the whole treat your neighbor as yourself, be kind to people, and God loves everyone, rather than a strict adherence to doctrine. So
sure.
it doesn't mesh in terms of a lot of people's beliefs, and I know it's logically probably quite incoherent, but I'm comfortable with that at the moment.
So it's sort of like, it seems like Christianity is it informs your life stance, maybe informs your interactions with people, and maybe that's more important than
I think that's a really good way. I think that's a really good way of phrasing it. And Okay. Yeah. I seem to be running into that these past couple of weeks, I think. Like not to say that my previous guests or that people I've talked to don't have, you know, their own sort of logic to their beliefs, but that at the end of the day, it seems like the historical reality of a lot of these events portrayed in the Bible, whether Jesus cursed a fig tree or actually multiplied fish or walked on water or even rose from the dead, as I found out from Joe last week and talked with you as well, like that seems to fall on the wayside as to kind of what the general Christian message is supposed to be, at least in a certain interpretation, which is to kind of, you know, be good to people, right? Yeah.
So it's just interesting. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely the case. And it's I think if I'd been raised with this biblical inerrancy like Josh was, like a lot of other people were, then my research and my education would definitely cause massive problems, because once you get really into the ancient Near Eastern context, the legal side of things, really just what the Bible describes, a lot of the narrative is pretty horrific. Old Testament and New Testament. Sure. And obviously there is this question of, did Jesus even exist? I think that would be, like, all of that would be quite distressing, and probably, I suspect I'd probably be an atheist.
Yeah, that's distressing to me too. If if the God, at least of the Old Testament, is real,
Mhm.
like that's a distressing thought to be.
Yeah, he's not a nice, not a nice dude.
Yeah, like I would be. I'm almost relieved that he's not. I mean, I am relieved that he's not. You know, like I do find relief in my sense of non-belief. It wasn't that way for me at first. At first, it was this terrifying, oh no, there's no black and whites anymore. There's a lot more grays in the world that I have to wrestle with because I may not be accountable for my actions in a second life somewhere, you know, or you know, all this time I've been putting into this thing turns out to not have been real in some way. It was real in the sense that I was in community with people and I had, you know, met friends through that and had, you know, interactions that were deeply personal to me. But the grand plan is kind of for naught, at least from my perspective. Like I wasn't working towards saving souls because there were no souls to save, literally. So, you know, that's why it's fascinating to have, I don't know, conversations with Christians who didn't need all that extra stuff. That kind of other stuff just kind of falls on the wayside. So
for me, the emphasis is and really always has been. And for those listening who don't know, I was raised Anglican. When I'm in the UK with my family, I worship at an Anglican church. When I'm here, when I go to church, it's been a while. Like a couple of years, but when I go to church, I normally will go to an Episcopalian church. I've worshipped as a Quaker before, and the overriding thing with all of the congregations I've been a part of is less follow the Bible to the letter, or as like this version of the Bible to the letter, and much more about this is our community. Our church community exists in a much wider community. How can we make it a better place for everyone, regardless of whether they sit next to us on a Sunday morning or not?
Yeah. And I like that. But like for me personally, and I'm wondering what you think about this. Like I don't need the baggage that Christianity comes with to like do everything that you just talked about, right? Because I think you and I would both agree that Christianity has a lot of baggage.
Oh,
right. Like, you know, there's like, it's hard because if I was to tell someone I was a Christian again, like, you know, say that I sincerely believed, right. And I told someone that, I don't know what they would think of me in that moment because it's such a broad enough label there. Where like, I personally would, even when I was a progressive Christian, I mean, was trying to reclaim that. But like at the end of the day, now that I kind of have a fuller picture than I did before, that would be really hard for me. I don't know.
Yeah. No, when I tell someone you actually I'm a Christian, I want to follow it up with, don't worry, I'm not one of those Christians. Like I'm queer, totally happy with the queer community. I'm not going to stand here and judge you and tell you that you're going to suffer in hellfire and damnation because you don't think the same way that I do, or because you choose to live your life differently. Like, as long as you're doing your best to live a life that does not negatively impede on other people, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's like, do you think because your work, I would argue, and you know this because you see your comments section and stuff, I argue that it's probably mostly atheists watching your stuff.
It is, which has been absolutely fascinating. And I think part of that is to do with how the channel started, because we started, Josh went on the dearly departed Non Sequitur show to talk about Mesopotamia and mythology, and I think this was a flood narrative discussion. And someone in the comments, I think it was MathPig, asked, does this guy have his own YouTube channel? And I was like, we should do that, because neither of us are going to have a traditional academic career. It's not possible because of our personal situations. So this is a really great way to share the knowledge that we've been privileged to gain, and to kind of keep our hand in the field. So because it kind of started at that point, and Non Sequitur and a lot of the other atheist YouTube community were so generous in pointing their audience towards us and having us on for interviews, and kind of, especially Josh, asking about like the Hebrew Bible, because it's much more Josh's specialty than it is mine. I think because of that, we definitely have a huge atheist space. And it's I love it because
Yeah.
I mean, I love just people being interested in what we do anyway. But it's definitely interesting that it's all coming from this kind of atheists essentially wanting to understand the Old Testament and the environment in which it was written. Like, and this is like a recurring theme. They are so much more interested than most of the Christians that you'll come across on the internet, because what we're saying and the world that we're trying to illuminate really doesn't fit into the fundamentalist Christian narrative. So they're not terribly interested, whereas the atheists actually want to know the historical truth. Name of the show, but truth is a really hard thing to get at, especially with history. So they want to know the historical facts and data so that they can draw their own conclusions and kind of understand things better. I like it a lot.
Yeah. It's fun to look at it now because I'm not in a space where I'm wrestling with that as like how to like determine my reality, right? Like the conclusions that academics would call to today in New Testament or Old Testament scholarship are not going to immediately affect how I like interact with the world. Whereas if I was a Christian, they absolutely would, because the exact interpretations of what these books are supposed to mean, I would have to follow, because that's kind of the way that I was taught to express Christianity, right? Which obviously, you know, isn't everybody's Christian experience, but it was certainly mine. Like I didn't understand what it meant to be a Christian without this Bible thing, right? So that's fascinating that you get that response. I'm curious on your part, because like your channel has grown to the point where I am sure that somebody was a Christian maybe isn't a Christian anymore, and that might be in part because of the work that you've done on the channel. Does that bother you in any way?
No, because I think that the form of Christianity that we see so often on YouTube and in the US media is incredibly damaging and very toxic. And actually, if what we're doing helps people find a healthier way to be and brings them or helps them come to some kind of peace in terms of, okay, this isn't real, this isn't truth, I am not getting judged on a daily basis, and that is helpful for them, then I would much rather that than them just kind of keep going and keep being unhappy and scared all the time.
Yeah that's an answer I would hope you would say. Right, I mean, I hope you would come to that, but for a lot of reasons. But yeah, like I admire that. I do admire that, because like sometimes looking at the facts of things just means you have to change your mind about stuff. And I mean, we talk about that all the time on this show, but that is like, I think one of the hardest things a human being can do. I really think it is. And I'm grateful that there's voices like you out there who are, you know, willing to be at peace with that in terms of your own personal faith, in terms of not letting like other people, because like I'll say this, like for as long as I've known you, you have been a proponent of atheists and atheist rights the whole way through. So
it's, like, what other people think and how they choose to worship or not is absolutely none of my business. And the fact that you are an atheist should not stop you from pursuing any career or living in any part of the world. And like it's really, this is, sorry, a little bit of a tangent, it's very strange to me that religion is so politicized in the US. Like I'm relatively sure that the British Prime Minister is Anglican, but I've never heard him talk about it. I probably never will. And I mean, I take issue with Boris Johnson for any number of reasons, but like, it's strange to me that in order to be considered a good person, you must also be an outspoken Christian. Yeah. Especially because the kind of speech that often comes with that is hatred and the exact antithesis of what I would consider Christianity to be. I just, what you believe is none of my business. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, I don't care.
I think there's a silent judgment there that comes with it too, even if you don't outwardly say so. Like I can tell from my, just personal experience with my friends and family who know that I do this show, who know that, I don't believe the same anymore. Like I can't tell exactly what they think, but I know that it's different from what it was before. I don't have, in a lot of cases, I don't have the same kind of relationships that I did because my relationships with them were in the context of a Christian community. And so now that I don't share that same commonality with them, it becomes much different, I guess. And some of them respect my past, some of them don't. But yeah, I guess, it's good to remember that this isn't just it's not a global phenomenon all the time. There are places where people don't give a shit, but I mean, the US isn't exclusive to that either. I mean, we get calls and messages from people all around the world who do suffer from that kind of bigotry, and it sucks. I don't like it.
I think the atheist activists that I've been privileged to meet through YouTube are some of the bravest people I've ever met, because the abuse you guys have to sit through. I mean, for every one person telling me I'm not a real Christian, I'm sure you get hundreds of people telling you that you're going to hell and that you can't possibly be a good person and what you're doing is sinful and wrong. And then you hear stories about people's families just like kicking them out because they believe differently. And it's incredibly brave, I think, to do the work that you guys do.
Well, I appreciate that. And for your part, Megan, I would say I am thankful that there are Christians out there who are willing to speak out for atheist rights and who want to acknowledge that atheists can be in the same space doing good work. Because I kind of said this last week, but look, I expect that there's going to be Christians for the rest of my life that I'm going to have to work with. I'm going to have to figure out a plan with getting along. Would I prefer you be an atheist? I don't know. I mean, like, I do think that I don't believe Christianity is true in any meaningful sense. So, in that sense, like there's a truth statement there that I'd like you to acknowledge, because maybe that would change the way you do things. But like, but I do wonder to what point, because I don't know. There is like this. I think this happens a lot in political discourse as well that we have today, which is like, how much do we have to agree with other people to like work with them? I'm still struggling with this myself. I don't know, but I do know that I've known you for long enough to know. I mean, obviously you're married to Josh, so in some sense you're married to the atheist community, Megan. Yeah. I mean, that's I
think I'm at the stage now where all of my closest friends, or with the exception of my family, all of my closest relationships are with atheists. And I'm very happy with that. I feel very lucky that I've been accepted the way I have been, and very lucky that I've met the people I have.
Hell yeah. Well, I am glad that I knew you as well, and I'm glad that you're doing the work on Digital Hammurabi. You guys should check out that channel if you haven't already, and then also check out the episode we had about a month ago with Dr. Josh. But we should get to some calls now, Megan. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do that. Before we get to calls, though, we have to shout out the patron of the week. Every single week, I get to shout out one of you awesome patrons that decides to donate to the show. Thank you guys for doing that. This show is almost entirely run by volunteers, and the funds for like setting up this green screen and doing the audio and other tech work here, it all happens through volunteers. So thank you guys for donating and making that happen. So this week's patron of the week is, drum roll, please. Never mind, no drum roll. Mackenzie Quattlebaum. Thank you, Mackenzie, for donating to Truth Wanted. And thank you to all the patrons who donate to Truth Wanted. You guys rock. It's the best. Love doing this show for you guys.